Okay, welcome back. I'm Cappadocia. Welcome back to World of Warplanes, Plane Facts. This is a series where we take a look at the aircraft from World Warplanes and make a decision on go through a little bit of the history and then give my thoughts on what they could do to adjust, change, or make it fit a bit better with what the aircraft actually was. And today we are looking at the ME265. Now, this was an aircraft that was designed by the Messerschmitt company, but never actually built. So, it was designed as originally a two-seat destroyer was the term they used, or forgive my German pronunciation here, I don't speak German, but Zerstörer, is that correct? If anyone wants to correct me on that, please do. Basically a destroyer aircraft. So it was less of a ground attack and more of sort of a heavy fighter bomber was the plan. It was a delta wing, originally designed as a tailless delta wing, but tail later added, with two machine guns on the back? No, it was two 13mm guns mounted on the fuselage, MG 131s, two 20mm cannons on the front, and two 7.9mm machine guns. So that was the design around it. It was designed around two Daimler-Benz PD603 engines producing 1,745 horsepower each. Its expected range was approximately 1,850 kilometers. Max speed 675. But it never got past the design stage. There were a few different ideas, but the Hornish, the 410, was eventually selected and pushed forward, and so this one was quietly shelved. It's supposed to be an all-metal unit with two engines powering the four-blade propellers in a pusher configuration, so pushing forward. It had a stabilizer and rudder on the back, but not a proper tail section, so no tail wings or anything like that. So the design in the game is pretty accurate as to what they were going to build. But it never got past the developmental stage, so there's very little to actually say about the aircraft itself. Now, the one thing I will say about it is something I've thought for a long time now, which is that the question I was asked with experimental German aircraft is quite simple, which is, would it have ever made the theoretical performance that it could do? So its theoretical ceiling would have been 12,000 feet, 675 kilometers an hour flat out. Would it have ever made that? My instincts say no. Wouldn't have done it. And the reason behind this is very simple. And it comes from looking at other aircraft that Germany designed around the same time. The problem with this sort of aircraft, I mean, it's a unique design, nothing wrong with that. Would it have worked, theoretically? Yes. You look at later Delta Wing aircraft, and yeah, it would have worked, I think. I'm no aircraft engineer, but I'm just looking at similarities with other aircraft that came along a lot later, and even at the same time that were interesting designs like this. I think it could have worked, but I don't think it would have reached the abilities that Messerschmitt were predicting. And the reason behind this is quite simple. It's not to do with the Messerschmitt Aircraft Company. They knew what they were about. Was it Stendar, I think was the name of the engineer who was developing this thing? He obviously much more qualified than the likes of me to look at it and say would it have worked or not. He believed it would, so fair. But the problem with a lot of German aircraft around this time is they never made their potential. They never reached it. And the reason being is quite simple. It wasn't because the guys didn't know what they were building. It's not because the engineers were bad, the engines were bad, anything like that. It was the fact that higher ranking officials in the country and the party specifically kept on sticking their nose in. If you want engineers to design an aircraft, you want an aircraft designed, you let engineers design it, right? You want to know how it flies, you let a pilot tell you. So in the party at the time, they had people who could tell you this sort of stuff. They had engineers, they had developers, they had pilots, they had Hal Goering and Wolfram von Richthofen, who was an early member of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, were pilots. Obviously, Wolfram, his cousin, was the Red Baron in the Great War. So these are guys, and Wolfram himself was on the mission when Manfred died. So, you know, these are guys who know their planes. Goring himself was the former leader of Juster 12? Which was the flying circus. He was the last commander. So these are guys who know their planes. They know how to fly. It'd be like, and then, the guy in charge stuck his nose in wanting alterations to do more stuff. That's like me turning around and saying, "Oh, I know how to do it. I know what a good ship design is. I went on a dinghy once when I was a kid." The main man just rode around in the back of them. He never flew them. So there's a world of difference between knowing how to design and fly and riding around in the back as a passenger. I'm not stupid enough nor arrogant enough to turn around and say I know better than these guys because I've once sat in a plane. But the man himself was, and he kept sticking his nose in and wanted alterations. There are great examples of this, and I will come to them in other videos. Specifically, the 262 is the classic example. The jet heavy fighter, designed as a heavy fighter, forced into shoehorned into different roles because they were running out of ideas and running out of aerial dominance was a big problem. But that's neither here nor there for this video. And so this thing, the engineers have believed it would have flown, but my personal instinct says it would never reach this theoretical because it would not have been allowed to be what it was designed to be. It was designed as like a combination heavy fighter bomber, so it had cannons mounted in it, not many because it needed room for the bomb bay, but it also had cannon pointing afterwards, which is a pretty good defensive system. And yeah, it would, I think, have done its job if it was allowed to fairly well. But given the way that Germany was working at this time, it would not have been allowed to just do the job it was created for. It would have been shoehorned into doing all sorts. They would have wanted additional weight for outboard, turn it into a bomber, add mountings for rockets, allow it to be a ground attack. Things like that, which it was never designed to do. And that, I think, was always going to be this aircraft's problem. It was a problem with a lot of German aircrafts at this time. So while the theoreticals look good, would it have ever made it? Doubtful. Doubtful. Now, personally, looking at the aircraft in-game, I think there are a lot of other aircraft that could have been in this one's spot. And I think the only reason why the devs added this one is, well, look at it. You want an eye-catching aircraft? This aircraft catches the eye. Especially for this time period, just purely because of its shape. It is not a conventional designed aircraft by any stretch of the imagination. So, just because of that, it kind of draws your attention. And I think that's the main reason why it was added. Was there other aircraft around at the time that were more fitting for the game? Yeah. There were. I mean, the 410 would have been a great example of that. That could have been put in there. I know they put that in anyway, but they could have moved it down a bit because it was a direct competitor. There were other aircraft that could have been there. Fair enough. But it doesn't really fit because it wasn't a ground attack, not a purely ground attack. It's like I said, it was a destroyer aircraft. So it's a combination fighter, bomber, heavy fighter. That was the idea. And it was a lot faster than it's made out in the game. Where it's slow, it's agile. Fairly lightly armoured, mostly because it's small. I've noticed that's one thing in this game, that if the smaller aircraft tend to be lightly armoured, when that's not necessarily the case. Its two-man crew obviously is correct. The rear gunner, all the rest of that. Its bomb load is right. Its guns are not quite right, because it's got 4 machine guns on the back when it should have 2 13mm cannons. I get the feeling they did that because I don't think there's actually a 13mm cannon in the game, so not that I can think of off the top of my head anyway. So that would have been new. So putting 4 machine guns on the back I can kind of understand rather than the 2 cannon. But the design had 2 cannons on it. So yeah, that's a couple of things they could have tweaked. Also the fact it could go faster, it could go higher. I mean, in the game it struggles in high altitude. You can't get it to high altitude, it conks out, because it's designed as a ground attack, so therefore they don't want it to go high. Which, for game balance, I get. But this isn't the plane that was meant to be for that. Yeah, it could do ground attack, with the bombs on the side of it, but again, it was a multi-role aircraft. It's sort of combination fighter bomber, heavy bomber. So, it's in the wrong role, really, for what it was. It's not quick enough. It doesn't go high enough. Jinx alright, but we don't know how agile this thing would actually have been. And like I said, I don't think it would have been as agile as they made it in the game, purely because of interference from the party. Wanting alterations at the last minute, yada 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 yada. You know how it goes. If you're a plane nut, you don't need me to tell you how inefficient German aircraft design was at the time, which is neatly ironic for a country which is famed for efficiency. But mostly because of interference, people sticking their nose in and generally causing problems. Do I like the aircraft in the game? Yeah, love it. It's one of my go-tos for if I have a mission during the week that requires me to knock out ground targets for the medium tier aircraft, then this is my go-to. I really like it. It jinks nicely. Like I said, it's not a behemoth. It's not a heffalump. But I think it could do with a bit more armour, a bit more survivability. Just because, it is quite weak for a tier aircraft. It flies nice, but it needs just a bit more survivability, I think, personally. But, and again, like I said, I would like to see them add the 13mm cannons on the back rather than relying on 4 machine guns, because those machine guns don't do a lot of damage. Yeah, I think they're just the 9mm I think it's got on the back, or the 7mm, 7.9 maybe, German caliber machine gun. But it didn't have those. So everything else I've got right. But again, there's tweaks I'd like to see them make. If they're going to keep it as ground attack, just for the game, then give it a bit more armor, make it a bit more survivable. It's light, it's agile, it was designed to be so, but it also needs that survivability to play the role. So rather than for a historical alteration, I think a balanced alteration would be better. But yeah, overall for the style that they wanted for the plane to fly as, even though it's not accurate to the history of the aircraft, it fits for the game. It is a little bit different. I mean, it looks awesome when it's flying, but there are problems. And the fact that I don't get why, well, like I said, I kind of get why they wanted this aircraft in the game, because it's a unique looking aircraft. So yeah, I can dig that, I understand. But there were plenty of aircraft that actually were made that you could have used. It's strange. This is one of, obviously, especially for the later tier German aircraft. I know they're all theoretical aircraft, because by that point, Germany was, well, we don't need to go through what happened at the end of World War II in an aircraft video here, do we? Do we really? No. So, Germany itself was in a lot of trouble, and wasn't really being able to produce aircraft that it needed. Yada yada yada. But with some of the theoretical aircraft, they've made alterations to them away from the history of the plane, which does kind of irk me a little bit. But if you want to use, like I said, like I was trying to say, if you want to use this as a ground attack aircraft, fine, but make it a bit more survivable. It is very weak. I mean, I've kitted mine up slower, heavier armoured, but it can't take a lot of punishment because its health is too low. Look at the difference between the Russian aircraft that you come across when flying this thing. You'll notice the immediate difference. It's not that the Russian aircraft were better than the German aircraft, because they weren't. They were just throwing huge numbers in waves compared to what the Germans were trying to do with them. But again, I understand why it's here, because it looks awesome. It is a good looking aircraft, and it is very eye-catching compared to a lot of the aircraft that are around at the time. So I get it. But I'd like to see them be a bit more accurate with what it was designed to be, rather than what they've made it. But that's just me. This is just one random idiot talking. You don't need to listen to me. You don't need to absorb that. I have no problem with that. But this is just my viewpoint. But yeah, so the history of the aircraft, very short and sweet, because there is nothing there because it never made it off the design board. So there's not really much we can dig into, which is a shame. But it would have been, I think, an effective plane in reality. And in the game, it is effective. It does its job. But again, there's a few tweaks I'd like to see a little bit faster and a little bit more one or the other. Either make it quicker, make it more heavily armoured, one of the two. Either make it so that it's a real fast ground attack aircraft, lightning strike, get out, or make it so that it can stay in the fight a little bit longer. Because I think that's its biggest drawback here. But anyway, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of the flight from the video. Again, thanks to everyone who's been watching. Thanks for comments that have been left. I do read them. I respond to all of them. At least I think I do. I don't think I've got any that I haven't responded to at the minute. So thank you for that. It's always nice to interact with people. If you've got any where you disagree, please tell me. If you keep it polite, I'm more than happy to discuss the ins and outs of the aircraft history. I have no problem with that. I enjoy doing that. So if you've got a differing opinion, fine. Please share it. Go for it. Tell me. I'll explain to you in more detail why I think. I may make another video on it, which would be awesome. And thank you as well to everyone who's new, who's dropping in and saying hello. Again, thanks for that. I do really enjoy that, and I do enjoy talking to people online. I do enjoy discussing in the comments. So yeah, all good. Like I said, as long as you keep it polite, keep it nice, keep it away from the personal crap, and just be nice to me. Be nice. I can't help it. But anyway, thanks for your time. And for the minute, I've been Cappadocia. Signing off.
Superiority achieved. Hang in there. You'll soon be cut off from support. I say again, support will not be available.